In the grand halls of Valdoria Palace, where secrets whisper through ancient stone corridors and loyalty is measured in silence, a single letter threatens to unravel decades of carefully guarded royal tradition. When Captain Marcus Sterling of the Royal Guard intercepts a mysterious message meant for Prince Alexander's milestone birthday, he discovers that some truths are too dangerous for even a future king to know. But in a world where duty battles love and protocol wars with family bonds, one mother's final words may change the course of a kingdom forever. The morning mist clung to the towers of Valdoria Palace like ghostly fingers, reluctant to release their grip on the ancient stones that had witnessed centuries of royal secrets. Captain Marcus Sterling adjusted his ceremonial sword as he made his rounds through the east wing, his polished boots echoing against marble floors that had been walked by kings and queens since the palace's founding in 1147. Today marked exactly 40 years since Prince Alexander's birth, and the entire kingdom of Valdoria buzzed with celebration preparations. Marcus had served the Royal Guard for 15 years, rising through the ranks with unwavering dedication and an almost supernatural ability to anticipate threats before they materialized. His steel-grey eyes missed nothing, from the nervous flutter of a new servant's hands to the way shadows fell differently when someone lurked where they shouldn't. This morning, however, something felt different in the palace atmosphere, like the electric charge that precedes a thunderstorm. The Royal Mail Office occupied a corner of the palace's administrative wing, where mountains of correspondence arrived daily from across the kingdom and beyond. Letters of congratulations, official state documents, and personal messages all flowed through this nerve center, each piece carefully screened by a team of trained staff before reaching their intended recipients. As head of palace security, Marcus made it his business to understand every aspect of the royal household's operations, including the seemingly mundane task of mail sorting. Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore had managed the mail office for nearly 3 decades, her sharp eyes and sharpened memory serving as an unofficial archive of royal correspondence. She possessed an almost mystical ability to recognize handwriting, even when disguised, and could spot a forgery from across the room. This morning, she sat hunched over her mahogany desk, a peculiar expression clouding her usually composed features. "Captain Sterling," she called softly as he passed the office doorway. "Might I have a word?" Marcus stepped into the cramped but organized space, noting the way Mrs. Whitmore's weathered hands trembled slightly as she held a cream-colored envelope. The paper appeared expensive, with the kind of weight and texture that spoke of quality stationery. The address was written in elegant script, clearly intended for Prince Alexander, but something about the letter had obviously disturbed the usually unflappable male supervisor. "What concerns you, Mrs. Whitmore?" Marcus asked, his voice gentle but alert. The older woman glanced toward the doorway, ensuring their privacy before leaning forward conspiratorially. "This arrived in today's delivery, but the postmark is impossible. Look here." She pointed to the corner of the envelope where postal marks indicated the letter's journey. "This shows a posting date from 15 years ago, yet the paper isn't aged, and the ink appears fresh." Marcus examined the envelope more closely, his trained eyes catching details that might escape casual observation. The handwriting struck him as familiar, though he couldn't immediately place where he might have seen it before. The return address listed only initials, LM, with no accompanying location or surname. "There's more," Mrs. Whitmore continued, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I've seen this handwriting before, Captain. Many years ago, when I was just beginning my position here. It belonged to someone who—" She paused, seeming to weigh her words carefully. "Someone who isn't supposed to be writing letters anymore." The implications hung in the air between them like a dangerous secret. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest that accompanied the discovery of potential threats to the royal family. In his experience, mysteries surrounding the monarchy rarely remain simple, and seemingly innocent anomalies often conceal deeper, more troubling truths. "Have you opened it?" he asked, though protocol dictated that personal correspondence for the royal family remained sealed unless specific security concerns warranted inspection. Mrs. Whitmore shook her head firmly. "I wouldn't dare without proper authorization. But, Captain, I must tell you what my instincts suggest. This letter carries the weight of something significant, something that might disturb the natural order of things during what should be a joyous celebration." Marcus carefully lifted the envelope, feeling its substantial weight. Whatever lay inside was more than a simple birthday greeting. The paper felt warm to his touch, as if it had recently been held by living hands, yet the impossible postmark suggested it had been in transit for a decade and a half. As he turned the envelope over, Marcus noticed the wax seal on the back bore an impression he recognized from his studies of royal heraldry. It wasn't the current royal seal, but rather an older version, one that hadn't been used since Queen Isabella's reign ended 20 years ago when she abdicated in favor of her son, the current king. The seal depicted a rose intertwined with a crown, symbolizing the delicate balance between love and duty that had defined her controversial but beloved rule. "Mrs. Whitmore," Marcus said slowly, "I need you to tell me exactly where you've seen this handwriting before." The older woman's eyes filled with an emotion Marcus couldn't quite identify, part fear, part nostalgia, and something that might have been hope. It was during the final months before Queen Isabella's abdication. She would sometimes personally write letters to family members, bypassing the usual secretarial channels. This handwriting belongs to someone who signed her correspondence simply as Mother. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Queen Isabella had died 3 years ago, her funeral attended by representatives from every royal house in Europe. The official cause of death was listed as complications from pneumonia, though rumors had persisted about her declining mental state in her final years. The idea that a letter bearing her handwriting could arrive now on her grandson's 40th birthday defied every logical explanation. Marcus made a decision that would later prove to define the rest of his career and possibly alter the course of Valdorian history. Rather than immediately delivering the letter to Prince Alexander as protocol demanded, he chose to investigate further. Something about the timing felt deliberate, orchestrated, as if forces beyond his understanding were converging on this particular moment. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm placing this letter under temporary security review. Please document its arrival time and any observations you've made, but speak to no one else about this matter until I've completed my investigation." The male supervisor nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of the situation without need for further explanation. In the complex world of royal politics, information could be as dangerous as any weapon, and both she and Marcus had sworn oaths to protect the monarchy from all threats, whether they came from foreign enemies or mysterious letters that shouldn't exist. As Marcus left the mail office, the letter secured in his jacket pocket, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing at the edge of a precipice. Behind him lay the comfortable certainty of his duties and the clear lines of palace protocol. Ahead stretched unknown territory where the dead might speak to the living, and where a mother's love could reach across the boundaries of death itself to touch her son on his most important day. The palace bells began their hourly chime, marking the progression toward Prince Alexander's birthday celebration. Guests would soon begin arriving from across Europe, and the day would unfold with the precise choreography that characterized all royal events. But in Marcus's pocket, the impossible letter seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, demanding attention and threatening to disrupt the carefully planned festivities with revelations that might be too powerful to contain. Little did Marcus know that his decision to delay the letter's delivery would set in motion a chain of events that would test loyalties, reveal long-buried family secrets, and ultimately force the royal family to confront truths they had spent decades trying to forget. The letter represented more than just a birthday greeting. It was a key to understanding the real reason behind Queen Isabella's abdication and the family rift that had never fully healed. As he walked through the palace corridors, past portraits of generations of royal ancestors, Marcus began to formulate a plan for investigating the letter's origins without alerting the broader palace staff to its existence. He would need to be careful, methodical, and above all, discreet. The stability of the monarchy might well depend on how he handled this mysterious correspondence from beyond the grave. The royal archives occupied the palace's deepest basement level, a climate-controlled labyrinth of records that stretched back over 8 centuries. Marcus descended the stone steps, his footsteps muffled by thick carpeting installed to protect the precious documents from vibration damage. The familiar smell of old paper and preservation chemicals filled his nostrils as he approached the heavy oak door, marked, "Authorized personnel only." Dr. Pip, Helena Ashford, the royal archivist, looked up from her desk with surprise as Marcus entered her domain. A woman in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair and wire-rimmed spectacles. She had dedicated her life to maintaining the royal family's historical records with obsessive precision. Every document, photograph, and piece of correspondence that passed through the palace eventually found its way to her careful stewardship. "Captain Sterling, this is unexpected." "Dr. Jer," Ashford said, setting aside the manuscript she had been cataloguing. "I trust this isn't another security sweep? I've already assured you that our document handling procedures meet the highest standards." Marcus appreciated the archivist's directness, one of the qualities that made her invaluable to the palace administration. Unlike many court officials who spoke in careful euphemisms and diplomatic half-truths, Dr. Ashford dealt in facts and evidence. If anyone could help him unravel the mystery of the impossible letter, it would be her. Dr. Ashford, I need your expertise on a matter of some delicacy, Marcus began, choosing his words carefully. I'm investigating what appears to be a piece of correspondence with unusual characteristics, and I require access to samples of Queen Isabella's personal handwriting for comparison purposes. The archivist's eyebrows rose slightly, but she made no comment about the unusual nature of his request. Instead, she stood and walked to a specially secured filing cabinet marked with the royal seal. Queen Isabella maintained extensive personal correspondence throughout her reign. What specific time period interests you? Marcus considered the question carefully. The letter in his pocket bore characteristics that suggested it was written during a period of emotional significance, possibly during the tumultuous months leading up to her abdication. I'm particularly interested in personal letters she wrote to family members during her final year as queen. Dr. Ashford's expression grew more serious as she retrieved a leather-bound folder from the secured cabinet. That was a difficult period for Her Majesty. She wrote extensively to both King Edward and Prince Alexander during those months, attempting to explain her decision to abdicate. Many of those letters were never actually sent. The revelation that Queen Isabella had written unsent letters to her family members sent a chill through Marcus. Could the mysterious birthday letter be one of those lost communications, somehow preserved and delivered 15 years after her death? The possibility seemed fantastic, yet the evidence suggested something equally extraordinary was occurring. Dr. Ashford, were any of Queen Isabella's personal papers missing or unaccounted for after her death? The archivist paused in her document handling, her sharp eyes studying Marcus with new intensity. Captain, might I ask the nature of your investigation? Your questions suggest more than routine security concerns. Marcus made another decision that would prove pivotal to unfolding events. Rather than maintaining the professional distance that usually characterized his interactions with palace staff, he chose to trust Dr. Ashford with the truth. His instincts told him that solving this mystery would require allies, and the archivist's knowledge of royal history made her an essential resource. This morning, a letter addressed to Prince Alexander arrived in the Royal Mail. The postmark indicates it was sent 15 years ago, yet the paper and ink appear fresh. The handwriting appears to match Queen Isabella's personal script, and the letter is sealed with her old royal seal. Dr. Ashford set down the folder she had been holding, her face pale with shock. For a woman who had spent decades managing the unexpected twists of royal documentation, her reaction told Marcus that this discovery was truly unprecedented. That's impossible, she whispered, then immediately corrected herself. Or rather, it should be impossible. But in my years maintaining these records, I've learned that the royal family's history contains more mysteries than most people would believe. She opened the folder and spread several handwriting samples across her desk, each one bearing Queen Isabella's distinctive script. Marcus carefully removed the mysterious letter from his pocket, holding it beside the archive samples for comparison. Even to his untrained eye, the similarities were unmistakable. The formation of her letters, the pressure of the pen strokes, even the way she dotted her I's. Dr. Ashford murmured, examining the envelope through a magnifying glass. This is definitely Queen Isabella's handwriting, but the ink composition appears modern, and the paper stock wasn't available during her lifetime. Marcus felt the mystery deepening rather than resolving. Is it possible someone could have forged her handwriting so precisely? Ashford shook her head slowly. Queen Isabella had a unique neurological condition that affected the fine motor control in her writing hand. It created subtle variations in letter spacing that would be nearly impossible to replicate without extensive knowledge of her medical history. These variations are present in your letter. The archivist walked to another filing cabinet and retrieved a thick medical file marked with strict confidentiality warnings. During her final years, Queen Isabella suffered from what doctors initially diagnosed as early-onset dementia, but later testing suggested a rare neurological condition that affected her memory and cognitive function in specific ways. As Dr. Ashford spoke, Marcus began to piece together a disturbing possibility. What if Queen Isabella's death had been misreported? What if she had been living somewhere in secret for the past 3 years, her supposed death a carefully orchestrated deception designed to allow her to fade from public life without the scandal of a second royal health crisis? Dr. Ashford, who had access to Queen Isabella's medical records during her final years, the archivist consulted a logbook that tracked all access to confidential files. Her personal physician, Dr. Richard Pemberton, the King, Prince Alexander, and, surprisingly, a nurse named Margaret Chen who provided private care during Isabella's final months. Marcus made note of each name, recognizing that his investigation would need to expand beyond the palace walls. If Queen Isabella was somehow still alive, Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to maintain the deception of her death. The implications for the royal family and the kingdom's stability were staggering. "There's something else you should know," Dr. Ashford continued, her voice dropping to a confidential tone. 3 years ago, shortly before Queen Isabella's announced death, several of her personal items went missing from her private quarters. Among them was her personal stationery set and her private seal. The pieces of the puzzle began forming a coherent picture in Marcus's mind. If someone had taken Queen Isabella's personal writing materials, they would have the tools necessary to create authentic-looking correspondence. But the medical evidence suggested that only someone with intimate knowledge of her condition could replicate her handwriting so precisely. "I need to examine the contents of this letter," Marcus said, making a decision that violated direct orders but felt necessary given the circumstances. If Queen Isabella is somehow still alive, Prince Alexander deserves to know the truth, regardless of the political implications. Dr. Cameas put best. Ashford nodded gravely, understanding the weight of the moment. "Captain, before you proceed, you should know that Queen Isabella's abdication wasn't entirely voluntary. The official records suggest health concerns, but there were political pressures, family disagreements about the direction of the monarchy, and personal conflicts that never became public knowledge." Marcus felt another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. If Queen Isabella had been forced to abdicate and fake her death to escape political pressures, her desire to communicate with her grandson on his 40th birthday would make perfect sense. The timing suggested that she had been waiting for a moment when he would be mature enough to understand the full truth about her disappearance. With careful precision, Marcus broke the wax seal that had preserved the letter's secrets for 15 years. Inside the envelope, he found several pages of thick paper, covered in Queen Isabella's elegant handwriting. The first line made his breath catch in his throat. "My dearest Alexander, if you are reading this on your 40th birthday, then I have finally found the courage to tell you the truth about why I had to leave." The letter promised to reveal secrets that had been buried for decades, explanations that could reshape understanding of recent royal history, and most importantly, a grandmother's love that had survived exile, deception, and even apparent death. But as Marcus prepared to read further, he heard footsteps approaching the archive entrance and realized that his investigation was about to become far more complicated. The footsteps belonged to Sir William Thornbury, the king's private secretary and one of the most influential figures in the palace hierarchy. A tall, angular man with silver hair and penetrating blue eyes, Sir William had served the royal family for over 30 years, earning a reputation for unwavering loyalty and absolute discretion. His unexpected appearance in the archive sent immediate alarm bells ringing in Marcus's mind. "Captain Sterling," Sir William said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to obedience. "I understand you've discovered something that requires my immediate attention." Marcus quickly folded the letter and placed it inside his jacket, though he suspected Sir William had already observed enough to understand the situation's gravity. The private secretary's network of informants throughout the palace was legendary, and very little occurred within the royal residence without his knowledge. "Sir William, I'm conducting a routine security investigation," Marcus replied, maintaining the professional composure that had served him well throughout his career. "Dr. Ashford has been assisting me with historical documentation." Sir William's smile was thin and humorless as he stepped further into the archives, his eyes scanning the handwriting samples spread across Dr. Ashford's desk. "Captain, in my experience, routine investigations rarely require examination of deceased monarchs' personal correspondence. Perhaps you would be kind enough to share the nature of your discoveries." Dr. Ashford cleared her throat diplomatically. "Sir William, we've encountered what appears to be an anomalous piece of mail addressed to Prince Alexander. The captain was simply conducting due diligence by verifying its authenticity." The private secretary's expression remained carefully neutral, but Marcus caught a flicker of something that might have been recognition, or perhaps concern. "I see. And what conclusions have you reached regarding this anomalous correspondence?" Marcus realized he was standing at a crossroads that would define not only his career, but potentially the future of the royal family. Sir William's presence suggested that knowledge of the letter's existence had already spread beyond the archives, meaning that his investigation could no longer remain secret. The question was whether Sir William was an ally seeking to protect the royal family, or a guardian of secrets that needed to remain buried. The letter appears to be authentic correspondence from Queen Isabella, postmarked 15 years ago but only now delivered, Marcus said, deciding that partial honesty was his best strategy. "Given the unusual circumstances, I felt it warranted careful examination before delivery to Prince Alexander." Sir William nodded slowly, as if Marcus had confirmed something he already suspected. "Captain, I appreciate your diligence in this matter. However, I must inform you that you've stumbled into territory that involves matters of state security far beyond your current authorization level." The statement sent a chill through Marcus as he began to understand that the letter's existence was not the surprise to palace officials that he had assumed. "Sir William, are you suggesting that you were aware of this correspondence?" Instead of answering directly, Sir William gestured toward the archive's private conference room. "Dr. Ashford, Captain Sterling, I believe we need to discuss this matter in complete privacy. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels of government, and your silence will be essential to protecting both the monarchy and national security." As they moved into the soundproof conference room, Marcus felt the weight of the letter in his pocket like a burning coal. Whatever secrets Sir William was about to reveal, they would fundamentally change his understanding of Queen Isabella's disappearance and the royal family's carefully maintained public image. Sir William activated a device that would prevent electronic surveillance of their conversation, then turned to face Marcus and Dr. Ashford with an expression of grave seriousness. "Captain, Dr. Ashford, what I'm about to tell you must never leave this room. Queen Isabella is alive." The simple statement hit Marcus like a physical blow, confirming his growing suspicions while simultaneously opening up a world of new questions. Dr. Ashford gasped audibly, her scholarly composure finally cracking under the weight of the revelation. "For the past 3 years, Queen Isabella has been living under protection in a secure facility in Scotland," Sir William continued. "Her supposed death was a carefully orchestrated operation designed to remove her from a political situation that had become untenable for both the monarchy and the government." Marcus found his voice despite the shock. What kind of political situation would require faking a monarch's death? Sir William walked to the window, gazing out at the palace gardens where tourists and staff went about their daily routines, unaware of the explosive conversation occurring floors below them. During her final year as queen, Isabella became increasingly vocal about what she perceived as government overreach into royal affairs. She threatened to use her constitutional powers to dissolve Parliament unless certain policies were reversed. The implications began to dawn on Marcus as he understood the constitutional crisis that would have resulted from such actions. While largely ceremonial, the monarch's theoretical powers to dismiss government officials remained real, and their use would have triggered the most serious political upheaval in British history. There were also personal factors, Sir William continued. Queen Isabella discovered certain information about her son's marriage to Queen Catherine, information that she threatened to make public unless family dynamics changed significantly. Dr. Ashford leaned forward in her chair, her historian's instincts engaged despite the personal nature of the revelations. "What kind of information?" Sir William hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with revealing intimate royal secrets. Let's simply say that the marriage had certain arrangements that differed significantly from public perception. Queen Isabella felt that these arrangements were damaging to Prince Alexander's emotional development and threatened to expose everything unless changes were made. Marcus began to understand the complex web of personal and political pressures that had led to Queen Isabella's exile. A monarch threatening to destabilize both government and family structures would have faced enormous pressure to step aside. But her strong personality and deep convictions would have made voluntary silence unlikely. "So you convinced her to fake her death rather than continue fighting," Marcus said, the pieces falling into place. "We convinced her that disappearing completely was the only way to protect the monarchy's long-term stability while allowing her to maintain her principles," Sir William corrected. "The decision wasn't made lightly, and it came with significant personal sacrifice for everyone involved." The revelation explained many things that had puzzled Marcus about Queen Isabella's final months, including the restricted access to her medical records and the unusual secrecy surrounding her funeral arrangements. But it also raised new questions about the letter's purpose and timing. "Why is she contacting Prince Alexander now?" Marcus asked. Sir William's expression grew even more serious. "Because we recently learned that she's dying. Really dying this time. A rare form of cancer that gives her perhaps 6 months to live. She's insisted on the right to contact her family members directly, regardless of the political consequences." The tragic irony wasn't lost on Marcus. After 3 years of pretending to be dead to protect others, Queen Isabella was now facing real death and wanted to reconnect with the family she had sacrificed everything to protect. The letter in his pocket represented more than just birthday greetings. It was a dying woman's attempt to bridge the gap that political necessity had created. "The letter contains information that could destabilize the monarchy if it became public," Sir William warned. "Queen Isabella's perspective on her abdication details about the royal family's private arrangements, and most dangerously, her opinions about current government policies that she believes threaten the constitutional balance. Marcus realized he was holding in his pocket what amounted to a political bomb that could explode 3 years of carefully maintained deceptions. But he also understood that Prince Alexander deserved to know the truth about his grandmother's sacrifice and her current situation. "What are my options?" Marcus asked, though he suspected the answer would involve difficult choices between duty and conscience. Sir William studied him carefully before responding. "You have 2 choices, Captain. You can deliver the letter to Prince Alexander and risk destabilizing the monarchy during a crucial period of international relations. Or you can help us manage this situation in a way that allows the family to reconnect while protecting the broader interests of the crown." The weight of impossible choices settled on Marcus's shoulders as he considered Sir William's ultimatum. Outside the archives window, he could see the palace courtyard filling with early arriving guests for Prince Alexander's birthday celebration. Dignitaries, family members, and close friends moved through the familiar choreography of royal events, unaware that decisions being made in this basement room could fundamentally alter the monarchy's future. "Sir William," Marcus said carefully, "what exactly do you mean by managing this situation?" The private secretary opened a leather portfolio that contained what appeared to be carefully prepared documentation. "We've anticipated this moment for months, ever since Queen Isabella's medical prognosis became clear. There's a plan in place that would allow her to have limited, supervised contact with family members without exposing the deception of her supposed death. Doctor. Ashford leaned forward, her scholarly instincts engaged despite the personal drama unfolding before them. How would such contact be possible without revealing the truth to the broader palace staff and the public? Sir William spread several photographs across the conference table, showing a private estate in the Scottish Highlands, surrounded by dense forest and dramatic mountainous terrain. "Balmoral Estate has a private wing that's been prepared for family meetings. The official story would be that Prince Alexander is making a private retreat to reflect on his milestone birthday and his future role in the monarchy." Marcus studied the photographs while considering the implications. "And Queen Isabella would be brought there secretly?" "She's already there," Sir William revealed. "She's been staying in the private wing for the past 2 months, receiving medical care while hoping for an opportunity to reconnect with her family before her condition deteriorates further." The revelation that Queen Isabella was so close and that elaborate preparations had been made for this reunion suggested that Marcus had become an unwitting participant in a much larger plan. The timing of the letter's discovery, Sir William's rapid appearance in the archives, even the specific details that Dr. Ashford had been able to provide, everything pointed to a carefully orchestrated sequence of events. "Was my discovery of this letter really accidental?" Marcus asked, suspicion growing in his mind. Sir William's slight smile confirmed Marcus's deduction. "Captain, your reputation for thoroughness and discretion made you the ideal person to discover Queen Isabella's correspondence. Mrs. Whitmore was instructed to bring any unusual mail to your attention, and Dr. Ashford was prepared to provide the historical context you would need to understand the situation's gravity." Marcus felt a mixture of anger and admiration at the elaborate manipulation that had led him to this moment. "So you've been orchestrating this entire investigation. We've been creating the conditions for Prince Alexander to learn the truth in a way that maximizes family healing while minimizing political damage," Sir William corrected. "The letter is genuine. Queen Isabella wrote it herself and specifically requested that it reach her grandson on his 40th birthday. Our role has been ensuring that her wishes could be fulfilled safely." Dr. Ashford cleared her throat diplomatically. "Sir William, while I appreciate the care that's been taken to protect all parties involved, doesn't Prince Alexander deserve to make his own choices about whether to see his grandmother?" The question struck at the heart of the ethical dilemma that Marcus had been wrestling with since discovering the letter. While he understood the political necessities that had led to Queen Isabella's exile, he also recognized Prince Alexander's right to know the truth about his family's situation. "Prince Alexander will be given the choice," Sir William assured them. "But he'll be presented with complete information about the consequences of that choice, both for himself and for the monarchy. The letter you're carrying, Captain, is only the first step in a much larger conversation." Marcus removed the letter from his pocket and placed it on the conference table. "Then perhaps it's time to let Prince Alexander make his own decisions about his family relationships." Sir William nodded approvingly. "Agreed. But the delivery must be handled with extreme care. Prince Alexander is currently hosting a private luncheon for close family members before this evening's formal celebration. I suggest you present the letter during that gathering, when he has the support of immediate family, but before the arrival of foreign dignitaries who might be affected by any emotional reactions. The plan made sense from both personal and political perspectives, but Marcus realized that his role in the situation was far from over. What happens after I deliver the letter? That depends entirely on Prince Alexander's response, Sir William said. If he chooses to see Queen Isabella, arrangements will be made for a private trip to Scotland within the next few days. If he decides the risks are too great, the letter will remain their only communication. Dr. Ashford gathered the handwriting samples and historical documents they had been examining, carefully returning each piece to its proper file. Captain Sterling, you should know that regardless of Prince Alexander's decision, your discretion in this matter has been exemplary. Your service to the royal family extends far beyond your official duties. Marcus appreciated the archivist's kind words, but he knew that the most challenging part of his involvement lay ahead. Delivering life-changing news to a member of the royal family required skills that went beyond his security training, and the consequences of his approach could affect not only Prince Alexander, but the entire monarchy's future. As they prepared to leave the archives, Sir William placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Captain, when you deliver this letter, remember that you're not just carrying birthday greetings. You're giving a man the opportunity to reconcile with a beloved family member before it's too late. That's a gift more valuable than any political consideration. The statement resonated deeply with Marcus, reminding him why he had joined the Royal Guard in the first place. Beyond the ceremonial duties and security protocols, his ultimate responsibility was protecting the royal family's well-being in all its forms. Sometimes that meant stopping assassins and terrorists, but today it meant ensuring that love could triumph over political expediency. As they ascended from the archives toward the palace's main floors, Marcus could hear the sounds of celebration preparation growing louder. Musicians were rehearsing in the grand ballroom, caterers were setting up elaborate displays in the dining halls, and staff members were making final adjustments to decorations throughout the public spaces. But Marcus's focus was entirely on the letter in his pocket, and the conversation that would soon follow. In a few hours, he would forever change Prince Alexander's understanding of his family history. The man who believed his grandmother had died 3 years ago would learn that she was not only alive, but desperately wanted to see him before her real death claimed her. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on Marcus as he walked through corridors lined with portraits of long-dead monarchs. In a palace where history was carefully preserved and documented, the most important family story of recent decades had been hidden behind lies and political necessity. Today, truth would finally have its chance to emerge from the shadows. As Marcus approached the private family quarters, where Prince Alexander was hosting his intimate luncheon, he could hear laughter and conversation flowing from behind ornate doors. Soon, that joyful atmosphere would be replaced by something far more complex. The bittersweet reunion of family members separated by forces beyond their control, and the beginning of what might be Queen Isabella's final chapter. The private family dining room occupied a corner of the palace's residential wing, its tall windows overlooking the rose gardens that Queen Isabella had personally designed during her reign. Prince Alexander sat at the head of an intimate table surrounded by his closest family members. His father, King Edward, his wife, Princess Margaret, and their 2 teenage children, Princess Sophie and Prince James. The atmosphere was relaxed and warm, filled with the easy conversation that characterized their rare private gatherings. Marcus stood outside the dining room door, the letter heavy in his pocket, knowing that his next actions would forever alter the dynamic of the family scene playing out before him. Through the slightly open door, he could hear Prince Alexander laughing at something his son had said, the sound filled with genuine happiness and the contentment of a man celebrating a significant milestone surrounded by those he loved most. Taking a deep breath, Marcus knocked softly on the doorframe and waited for permission to enter. Prince Alexander looked up from his conversation, his expression shifting to mild curiosity at the sight of his security chief appearing during a private family meal.
Captain Sterling, Prince Alexander said warmly. I trust everything is proceeding smoothly for this evening's celebration. Marcus stepped into the room, acutely aware that every family member was now focused on his presence.
King Edward's eyes showed the sharp intelligence that had served him well throughout his reign, while Princess Margaret's expression reflected the protective instincts of a mother who sensed potential disruption to her family's peace. Your Highness, I apologize for interrupting your private time, but I have received a piece of correspondence that requires your immediate personal attention, Marcus said, his words carefully chosen to convey urgency without causing alarm. Prince Alexander set down his wineglass and studied Marcus more closely, his years of royal training allowing him to recognize the subtle signs of significant news. What kind of correspondence, Captain? Marcus withdrew the letter from his pocket, noting how the entire family's attention focused on the cream-colored envelope with its elegant handwriting. A birthday message that arrived through unusual circumstances, sir. The content appears to be of a highly personal nature. King Edward leaned forward slightly, his eyes focusing on the envelope with what Marcus recognized as growing concern. Captain, might I examine the letter's exterior before my son opens it? Marcus handed the envelope to the king, watching carefully as the monarch's face went through a series of subtle changes. Recognition, shock, confusion, and finally something that might have been hope flickered across features that had been trained since childhood to reveal nothing of personal emotion. This is impossible, King Edward whispered, his voice barely audible as he examined the handwriting and postal markings. Alexander, before you open this, you should know that the handwriting appears to belong to your grandmother. The statement sent ripples of shock through the assembled family. Princess Sophie gasped audibly, while Prince James looked confused by the adult's obvious distress. Princess Margaret reached for her husband's hand, providing support as he processed this impossible development. Father, grandmother died 3 years ago, Prince Alexander said gently, though his eyes never left the envelope. Surely this must be some kind of mistake or perhaps a cruel hoax. Marcus realized that the moment had come for him to reveal the truth that would shatter 3 years of carefully maintained deception.
Your Highness, with your permission, I believe there are aspects of Queen Isabella's disappearance that you haven't been told.
King Edward's shoulders sagged slightly as he understood that the family secrets he had worked so hard to protect were about to be exposed. Captain, are you certain this revelation is necessary? Sir, with respect, I believe Prince Alexander deserves to know the truth about his grandmother, especially given the contents of this letter, Marcus replied, drawing on reserves of courage he hadn't known he possessed. Prince Alexander looked between his father and his security chief, his sharp intelligence beginning to piece together implications that neither man had explicitly stated. Captain Sterling, are you suggesting that my grandmother might still be alive? The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything the family had believed for 3 years. Marcus looked to King Edward for permission to continue, understanding that royal protocol demanded the king's consent before such explosive revelations could be shared. After a long moment, King Edward nodded slowly. Alexander, 3 years ago your grandmother and I made a decision that we believed was necessary to protect both the monarchy and her personal dignity. Recent developments have made it clear that the time for complete honesty has... As King Edward explained the political pressures that had led to Queen Isabella's exile and the elaborate deception that had followed, Marcus watched Prince Alexander's face go through its own sequence of emotions. Disbelief gave way to understanding, understanding to anger, and anger finally to a profound sadness that seemed to encompass years of unnecessary grief. So while I've been mourning her death, she's been living in exile because of political pressures I knew nothing about? Prince Alexander asked, his voice tight with controlled emotion. She made the choice herself, King Edward said quietly. She felt that disappearing completely was the only way to protect the family from the consequences of her political battles. The decision broke her heart, but she believed it was her duty as a mother and grandmother. Prince Alexander finally opened the letter, his hands trembling slightly as he unfolded the pages covered in his grandmother's familiar handwriting. As he read, tears began to flow down his face, and Marcus could see the decades of love and regret contained within Queen Isabella's carefully chosen words. After several minutes of silence broken only by the soft sound of pages turning, Prince Alexander looked up at his family with an expression that combined grief, joy, and determination in equal measure. She's dying, he said simply. Really dying this time, and she wants to see me before she goes. Princess Margaret squeezed her husband's hand supportively. What do you want to do? Prince Alexander stood from the table and walked to the windows overlooking his grandmother's rose gardens, the flowers she had planted decades ago still blooming in testimony to her enduring presence in the palace. I want to see her, he said without hesitation. I want to tell her that I understand why she made the choices she did and that I forgive her for the deception. Marcus felt a profound sense of relief as he realized that his decision to investigate the mysterious letter had led to exactly the outcome that love and family loyalty demanded. Despite the political complexities and potential consequences, Prince Alexander had chosen connection over caution, healing over hidden resentment. Captain Sterling, Prince Alexander said, turning back to face the assembled family, I assume arrangements can be made for a private trip to Scotland within the next few days?
Yes, sir.
Everything has been prepared for your convenience, should you choose to make the journey.
As the family began discussing the logistics of the reunion, Marcus quietly excused himself from the dining room, his role in the dramatic revelation complete.
Walking through the palace corridors, he reflected on the day's events and the reminder they provided about the power of love to transcend even the most complex political situations. Hours later, as Prince Alexander's birthday celebration continued in the grand ballroom, with hundreds of guests offering congratulations and best wishes, Marcus knew that the real celebration would occur in a few days in the Scottish Highlands. There, a grandmother and grandson would have the opportunity to say goodbye properly, to heal wounds that had festered in silence, and to demonstrate that some relationships are too precious to be sacrificed to political expediency. The letter that had started as a mysterious anomaly in the Royal Mail had become the key to reuniting a family separated by forces beyond their control. In a world where duty and love often conflict, Queen Isabella's final birthday gift to her grandson was the chance to choose love, regardless of the consequences. As Marcus completed his evening security rounds, he carried with him the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the most important duty of a royal guard isn't protecting the monarchy from external threats, but ensuring that the human hearts at its center remain capable of love, forgiveness, and the healing that comes from truth finally told.